Okay, so this is my video for tips and tricks into time management, and it's predominantly for my online asynchronous classes. But if you really struggle with time management in any case, and I think this works for a lot of different parameters, not just online asynchronous classes. I hope this is helpful for you. These are the tricks that I have learned over the years. So I've been a college student for 11 years. Yay. I really loved school. I do. I really, really love school. I love learning. Um, the first degree I got was in theater. Um, and so when I jumped from theater to science, it was a huge learning curve in terms of the material that I was learning and retaining that information. Theater was very hands-on. It was a lot of projects and building things. My degree was in costume design, so I did a lot of costume building, which did take time management in and of itself. But this was more for my science degree when I learned sort of how to reshape my mentality as to how to or retrain my brain into how to study. And I really struggle. I still struggle with procrastination. Um, but this summer I can't afford to do that. I have three different projects I'm doing on top of working full time. So I really have to manage my time appropriately. So you're going to see my personal uh, planner, and I'm totally fine with that. I don't write anything crazy on here. Well, I do, but you're going to see how I do my time management, and I hope it helps you. I am also weirdly obsessive about organization. Um, so that does help my situation a little bit. So if you're not used to being organized, maybe this will be the kick in the pants that you need. So some tips and tricks. Number one, first and foremost, um, this is what we call a soft skill. And what I mean by that is it's not necessarily something that I can teach you as an educator. Um, it is a skill, however, that you will utilize in every job and every life situation that you're in. Henry, then come up here. She's scratching at my blanket. So it's something that you will need every day, every job that you have, regardless of what that job is. You'll need to know how to time manage and how to appropriately set a schedule. Um, and you learn these skills in these classes, but they're not necessarily part of the curriculum, if that makes sense. So this is what I use to get through school, work, and my social life. They are tools. Um, and what I will say too is what I have found works for me isn't something that works for everybody. And that is also okay. So find a method that works for you. But I'll give you some maybe starting places. And as you go through this class and as you go through the rest of school, hopefully you can find methods that you are like, well, I pulled this from Emily's video, but actually this way works a little bit better for me. Awesome. I love that. I'm just here to offer some advice. The first thing I want to say, as somebody who's been in school for 11 years, and as somebody who's teaching a lot of students who work full time or have families or they have a lot of personal stuff going on, no assignment is worth your mental health. It is okay. I learned this the hard way too. It is okay to not do an assignment. This is not something to make a habit out of. This is not something that you're like, all right, well, I'm just not going to do this. This is like if you get home from work and you are like, God, I do not have the capacity to do this assignment. Um, it's okay to skip one. The world is not going to end. And what I tell my students too is in 5 years, are you really going to be thinking about that one assignment that you didn't do? Or are you going to be thinking about this class as a whole being a positive experience for you? And you saying, okay, I got an A instead of an A plus, or I got an A minus instead of an A. Um, but my mental health was top priority for this class. If this is the case, and again, don't make a habit out of this. This is not something you should be doing every module because you will start to see that in your grade. Another thing that's really important to know is to talk to your instructor if you feel comfortable. This is not well, if you didn't turn in an assignment, you need to email your instructor. I won't reach out unless I see that you have actively just not done an entire module which includes the lab, the quiz, and the homework. Or again, if this is a in-person class, if you haven't done multiple assignments, I'll reach out. But if I see that you skip one, I'm like, okay, that was a mental health day. Totally valid. Um, and I also understand that this piece of advice may not necessarily pertain to every instructor. Um, I do not necessarily agree with that mentality, but I have only been teaching for 2 years, and I see a lot of my colleagues who have been teaching for 10 or 11, and they have set much firmer boundaries in this capacity, and that's okay. But with me, if you're taking my class and you are struggling, you do not have to give me any information. You don't even have to say you're struggling with mental health. You can do whatever you are comfortable with. But if you communicate with me, I can help you, right? I can offer more assistance, or I can offer other avenues or other ideas. Um, but if you communicate, I can help. And I'd be more than happy to help. But again, you do not have to be specific. You do not have to say, hey, I am struggling with this very specific medical condition, X, Y, and Z. Also, if you have signed up for disability, I automatically get that information. So I'll know that you have something going on, right? And I'm obviously willing to work with that. Uh, but even if you haven't set up something in the disability with disability services, and you just say, listen, I had something come up this week. I couldn't finish this assignment. I am happy to talk to you about it. If you're just struggling with time management, I have gotten so many emails about this, and I'm so glad. A lot of times, a student isn't necessarily with struggling with mental health or with a medical issue or with anything in particular, but maybe they're just like, God, I have spent the last 3 modules procrastinating on these assignments, and it is incredibly stressful. I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. Send me an email about that. We can either meet on Zoom and I can walk you through some other tips and tricks, or like we can talk about what you're struggling with and I can offer some suggestions that are more personal. Um, and this is your responsibility. I'm not going to reach out if I see that you've turned in the last 3 modules last minute. Um, but I will offer the help if you ask for help. Okay, so my tips, where I start is obscenely in detail. First of all, I love me some color coordination. Um, this is my monthly calendar. So this was from May. Right now it is July 2026, but I wanted to show you a month that I had a lot going on. So I write down every day. I like to look at my month as a whole. And that's because uh I think I can visualize it as a whole, like, oh shoot, I got these things coming up once a week. Or every week I have these things coming up next week. So I write it all down and then I color coordinate. And then I know what my color coordination is. So these GO 208s that I've highlighted, these were field trips. Same with GO 101. I knew that field trips were coming up if my class was highlighted. But I color coordinate the classes that I have going on. The other job that I have, which is the Salish Sea School out of Anacortes, I wrote those down and then highlighted them in blue because sometimes I do spring programming with this nonprofit and it pops out of nowhere. So I like to know when those are coming. I got to go on a puffin trip this day. It was delightful. I did a talk through Padilla Bay. So I also volunteer and I'm part of the foundation board of Padilla Bay. And I do that most Saturdays, or I have board meetings on Mondays. I also, because this is all encompassing, I put my bills that are due, and then as I go through some of these things, I'll cross them out. So I crossed out each day as I went through them. Obviously, then I got here and I just skipped to the next month. Um, I also highlight the days I get paid, so that's always nice. Uh, Hovender plant sale, this was huge. I was there for 8 hours that day. So I like to see everything monthly. And then I have so this is a big binder. Let me show you a scale. This isn't a small planner. This is like my big 8.5 by 11 for each page, right? So I put stickies here of, okay, I have to get this done this week, and then I will cross them out as I go. Which brings me to my weekly checklist, and I just so happened to have written a weekly one for this. Sorry, I shouldn't say this class. Sorry, that Henry's going to jump on my laptop. Um, but so I'm currently building the curriculum and rewriting a bunch of my coursework for Geology 100, because I'm publishing that next week. And so I'm going through, I have listed everything in every single module. Even if I don't need to go through and fix it, I want to go through and make sure all the links work. I want to make sure that everything is like, so for example, climate change, my climate change module, the lab that I had offered an example from something that happened in 2024. And I was like, "Oh, I want to make it more up to date." So I did go in and change my climate change lab to make it something that was happening in 2026. So I'm going through right now and I'm crossing off all of the things that I have done. I went through and redid all of my PowerPoints to make them more accessible. Uh, so I'm doing all of that. See, I get to cross off my tips and tricks stuff here in a second. But I wrote down every single assignment. I also color coded it. Again, I love me some color coding, where I did all the videos are pink, my PowerPoints are orange, syllabus and welcome discussions. Didn't really have one. My homeworks were blue, my labs were green, and then my quizzes are yellow. So what I like about this too, and I can do this on a whiteboard as well. Whiteboards are great too, but I don't erase them. I like to cross them off because here's why. I think in my brain, when I see stuff that is crossed off, I also get a sense of the things that I've already done. And then, yes, I still have some things to do, but if I just erase them off like the whiteboard, then it still feels overwhelming with like, oh my God, I have so much to do. And yes, I do. But when I start to cross things off, I really see the progress that I have made. And I think that mentally that gives me a sense of achievement. And it helps me move forward a little bit more. Like, okay, I have a lot more to do, but I've done quite a bit. So I cross it off instead of erase it. Also, and I didn't do this here, but when I'm at school and I have a bunch of grading to get through and then curriculum building to get through, I'll also write down, and this is good for assignments, about how much time each assignment might take you. For Geology 100, homeworks will probably take an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Labs might take 2 hours. Quizzes will take an hour. And then lecture videos will take an hour. So I would recommend writing those times next to each slot. And the reason I recommend that is once you build your calendar, maybe you have an intense calendar like this where you're like, gosh, I have to work here and work here, but I should get some assignments done. You can look and be like, okay, well, I have time between the puffin tour and my training to do an hour's worth of something. Okay, well, homework will only take me an hour. So why don't I put homework down between these two items, and then I write it in there. It is part of my calendar now. It is part of my schedule, which means I have to do it. I don't have to, but it will help me visualize, okay, I'll do my homework here. I have time to do my lab on Tuesday, and then it's due Tuesday night. So it's just something for you to get in the habit of putting it visually in front of you. And then as you look at your calendar as you go, you can say, this is when I'll do it. And I would also recommend writing out when these assignments are due. You can say this is May, so this isn't helpful, but module 2 is due this day with the case study. Module 3 is due this way. I like writing my due dates, but then in pencil, like I would put that in pen with a fun color coordination. But then as you work through these assignments, put those in pencil and then cross them off as you go. And then also, if you put those in pencil, if you get to this puffin tour and you're like, shoot, this went to 2:30. Well, now I don't have time to do this assignment. You can erase it and move it to a day that you will have time to do it. But having it as a whole weekly, so this is everything. Actually, then to be fair, this was 2 weeks of work that I've had, but like 8 hours a day of me getting all this stuff done. It's a lot. But if you see it and you can visualize it and cross it off as you go, that will help with your time. The other thing that I also struggle with, but has helped me moving forward, is that I try to finish all my assignments before I start a new one. And I say assignments for me, but this is like I'll start building an assignment and I like to finish it before I start something new so that I can cross it off. So with all of these, I finished my anthroposphere PowerPoint before I went and did my climate change PowerPoint. And I do that for a couple reasons too. I'll do that A, so that I can cross this one off and move to this one. And now I don't have two I have to work on. But also, if I'm working on two at the same time, at least in my brain, I'll get really confused between the two and I'll be back and forth. So I have made it a mission, and again, it's something I'm still working on, to finish an assignment before I move on to another. Okay. And with you, with this online class, I recommend finishing a module before you jump to another one. I do have all my modules published, but finish a module before you move on to another assignment. That's my recommendation. It works really well for me. That way I can cross things off as I go and I don't finish one thing and think, oh shoot, I got to go back to this other one and finish that one. Because that gets really overwhelming too. So those are my personal tips and tricks. Please reach out if you have any questions or if you're struggling with this. I am more than happy to help. Henry, I just fed them too. I don't know what's going on. If you're struggling with time management, reach out. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to build a plan that works with you. Otherwise, good luck.